think it went before the bishops about June the 28th or 29th in 2018. And we scheduled an update session with our leads just so that we could say to them, okay, it's been approved by the bishops for use, fingers crossed, and it did get approved, and this is what we're going to do now. So we just had an afternoon where we presented it to them and said, next steps. We said to our schools, if you want to stay with levels, you can, because for various reasons, there are new RE coordinators who've got a whole host of things to do, schools are due inspection. There's lots of reasons why schools wanted to stay with levels. Not least because in our diocese they had spent years and years and years getting to a point where they were really happy with what they were doing. So as much as some schools were desperate to move away from levels, there were others that were saying, yeah, when you've got something that's final and good, then we'll make the move. So we said to them, if you want to stick with levels, you can. We were also conscious that we had about 30 schools, the majority of whom were obviously primary schools, who had engaged with that existing pilot. And when the very initial pilot came out, we had that standards document and we had nothing else. So those initial schools we invited into the pilot and we literally gave them that document and said, go away and do something with that and then come back and tell us what you did and tell us how it worked. We literally gave them nothing more than that. We met with them regularly to see if we could support them, but we literally gave it to them and said, go away and see what you would do with that document. For those of you that have looked at the age-related standards, you'll know it's in phases. So initially we had thought as an education team, we were disappointed that it wasn't years, so we thought, right, we'll sit and break it down. We couldn't do that because in our diocese we don't have one programme that everybody teaches. Some people teach the way the truth and life, some people teach come and see. And if you're going to relate this to a specific year group, you have to have a content. And as a diocese, we didn't. So some of our schools did do that. They had their content and they broke it down into years. Others said, no, we like it the way it is and we will work with it the way it is. So those existing schools, to honour really the work that they had done, we said that if you want to carry on doing what you're doing until this becomes something that's national, that's absolutely fine. And the third option was, for those schools that now wanted to get involved, what we didn't want was everybody going off in a different direction, because we knew that when the actual national document came out finalised, it was going to be like herding cats, getting everybody back together again. So we said, look, if you want to join the pilot, let's do that together, and as an education team we will guide you through how we want you to do that. So that was in the July. In the initial training that we provided, as a team we sat and talked about what we were hoping to get from this. And if you look at one of the pages in that document, it talks about the age-related standards, and it talked about it not just being about assessment, but really about planning and teaching. And to be honest, one of the things that we had noticed as an education team going into schools, that we had got to the stage with the last set of levels of attainment, we had our own diocesan version of those, that things had become very, very task-centred and lots of extended writing, and we'd lost the creativity a bit from our curriculum, and we had noticed that as advisors, that people were spending lots and lots of time building up to these extended writing pieces, fantastic pieces of work being produced at the end of it, but we were very conscious that we felt we'd lost something from our enjoyment and creativity within our RE, and we thought this could be an opportunity to get that back. So that first initial training session was all about planning and teaching, and we were really nervous about doing this because we've got, just as in your diocese, we've got fantastic schools doing really wonderful things. So for us to stand up and say, right, we're going to look at planning and teaching and go back to basics, we were a bit worried that we were patronising people, and we said that to them often. Our whole session focused on looking at learning objectives, using those driver words, and then relating that to success criteria, and then the task, and that process was a really important one for us. We've been told since by some of our really, really good schools that took this on board that they were very sceptical and a bit annoyed with us at the beginning, thinking that exactly that, we were patronising them. But they did go back and do this, and they had brought a scheme with them. We'd asked everybody to bring their Advent scheme with them. And once they started looking, there was a disconnect. Even in our very best schools, they had shifted things, moved things, and introduced a new task, and it didn't necessarily go back. So that process was a really worthwhile one. So I would say, if you haven't done that, that was a useful starting point. Diana is going to talk to you about what we did next. We really engaged with comparative judgment and no more marking, and we've had great fruits from that, and Diana will talk that through in the second part of today. As well as training, we produced support materials. That AT2 was an area that we thought some of our schools might need some guidance on, so we distributed some support materials. They're over there. We'll send those electronically. And then in the summer, one of the things that we were very conscious of was this new ATCRE, and we needed to unpack that a little bit. So we always have moderation sessions every summer, diocesan moderation, where RECs from all over the diocese come together and we spend an afternoon moderating. So we extended that to a whole day, and the morning was training, and the afternoon was moderation. We sent out a common task, and that was what we did in the summer to provide that training. Since then, we've had catch-up days, because we are finding now that some of those schools that didn't want to engage have since been inspected and are now ready. Some of them are thinking this has taken a lot longer than I thought it was to get the final version of this, so we can't stand still, we want to move forward. So we did catch-up sessions last term for those schools that hadn't engaged in training before. Last month we provided, one of the things that we've noticed now is that people have looked at their planning, have looked at their teaching, and now they're saying, well, you know, we're assessing, how do we track this, how do we record, and how do we monitor this? Now, we can't give them a definitive way to do this, because there isn't one. And the one thing that I'm very conscious of is taking schools down a path too far when I don't know what this national document is finally going to look like. Our schools want to move forward, and we want to help them to move forward, but I don't want to lead them down a path that we're going to have to come back from when we see what that national picture looks like. So we said to them, do whatever you're doing in your other subjects. If you're using Target Tracker, use Target Tracker, and our schools have got the statements. We've provided various examples of what some of our really good schools were doing, and we shared that. And I think that gave schools a bit more confidence. I'm not going to lie, people want us to tell them what to do, without a doubt. They absolutely want that. But if I tell them what to do, and then it's different to what Philip Robinson releases in September 2021, no one's going to be thanking me for having to backtrack. So we're trying to find that balance of moving forward, but not being too prescriptive and sort of pinning us into somewhere we have to backtrack from. And so for this year now we're going to do further training. We meet as deaneries, and so we'll find out from the deaneries what are the training needs. We'll do moderation afternoons, and we'll do something again to meet the training needs. So we have the deanery meetings, we provide RE subject newsletters, so we're trying to provide updates on that, and it's really just keeping momentum going. The other thing that we have is a sharing platform, and so schools can share. I'll be honest, they're much more comfortable sharing their displays than they are anything doing an assessment, but that's a culture that we're trying to build. It is a bit scary to share when you're not exactly sure that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing. I understand that. So really this is the standards document, and I guess what we've been trying to get across is that mindset shift of, with levels, you were kind of climbing this ladder and you're trying to get to the next level, and with this it's really about staying in your box and not trying to move into the next box. And that has been a shift for our teachers. And so what we're trying to get across to them is that it is about demonstrating the standards over time, and that the content will become more challenging over time. The standards will be demonstrated better. So it's not necessarily about jumping into the next box, but it is literally about staying in that box, applying it to new content, more challenging content, having lots and lots of opportunities to practice these skills. What we wanted to get away from was that idea of a tick box, that once you've done it, that's it. We have introduced a tick box thing, it's called a frequency chart, but that was trying to get across the idea of, it's not about doing the skill once and then that's it, but it's really about exploring your curriculum and looking at how many opportunities you're providing for these skills. So it's about progression. It's always about progression, but there was a fear that because this was a whole key stage, how do we show that progression? You know, if we're looking at these skills for a number of years, how are we evidencing that progression? And that is a challenge. So we created frequency charts. We asked them to look at their scheme that they brought with them. We asked them to look at their schemes in staff meetings, and we said, look at your current schemes and look at how often are you providing the opportunity for those driver words, those skills. Because even those that haven't moved across to age-related standards but are still using levels, the driver words are pretty similar. So if you're using those driver words in your learning objectives, what kind of opportunity are you giving to students to really embed those skills? And we wanted them to look at where are the ones where you're just not really giving an opportunity, which are the most difficult ones to evidence. So we really wanted them to engage with what they were currently teaching in light of these standards. So that was a frequency chart, and it was literally, when I said it's not about tick box, this is a tick box. So, but it was really just reviewing their curriculum to see how often they were doing that. So we focused on AT1 because obviously you can't really do the other ATs until you've got this. So we focused on there in terms of our teaching and learning. Like I said, we focused initially on learning objectives. We really wanted those driver words to be used, learning objectives, maybe in success criteria as well, and then linking to a task. And then we gave them various standards and learning objectives and talked through tips with them that you can focus on a small part of the standard, make it manageable. We were linking standards, so we spent a whole day really just grappling with these standards and the learning objectives and what it meant. And these are just a couple of examples I've put in this presentation. We gave them a support document. We did this previously with the levels of attainment, because what you're finding is if you're using those driver words in your learning objectives, and if you're using them all the time in your success criteria, it gets really repetitive. How many times we talk about retelling or recognising? So we just gave them other verbs, and we just gave them questions and just some recommendations for things that they can do. Again, I know this isn't that clear. It is over there, but we'll send it out electronically to you. This was useful for them, I think, just because they wanted other ways of phrasing things, but without drifting away from those driver words too much. We were really conscious that EYFS wasn't forgotten, so we created a support document there as well. And then the support materials for AT2, we were focusing on meaning and purpose, and we started to create some templates, some guidance document examples of questions, but then templates of how they could do things as well. So it gave lots of examples of things that could be done in paired work, group work, and just different ways of approaching AT2. AT3 was the new one, and we spent half a day on this really, unpacking what that meant. And again, we broke it down, really looked at what was being required at each stage. Talked about constructing arguments, making judgments, recognising diversity. We gave them some possible activities. And then we started to give them some templates and matrices that they could use or adapt if they wanted to. We got them to discuss these, look at what skills they would be using, and some possible templates for how to approach these in class. That's a real whistle, and it doesn't mean very much without the documents there, but I think the reason that I'm rushing through what we did was that's what we did with our teachers. I think that probably the most exciting thing that we did that's been most beneficial for evidencing those steps of progress is what Diana's going to talk to you. The bits that I've shown you, we'll send them, have a look at them. If they're useful, use them. If they're not, don't. I'm going to hand over to Diana now because she's got the exciting stuff.
Oh, I don't know about that. Right, so when we started this, like Amanda said, our teachers really wanted to know how they were going to tackle it, as every school was. Yes, we know we're moving away from the end of unit task, but in the meantime, to get a common language going, we did set some tasks. Now, the history behind this is that secondary schools had joined with a company called No More Marking. And there was a pilot across a couple of the dioceses to try to get some standards that could help them track for GCSE. So they'd already forged this relationship, so I kind of went, hey, what about primary? Let's have a go. So the first one we tried is not the first one you're going to see, but they all have a commonality. As Amanda said, they are there. They're not the most exciting when you look at them like this, but hopefully the content inside is the exciting bit. Okay, our teachers are really thinking that they're helping them see how these standards progress. And as she was saying, it's not about ticking the box, it's about, well, how do I get better at retelling? And that's the whole fundamental background behind this. So we use something called comparative judgment. Who knows what that means? What does comparative judgment mean?
It's where you compare two different pieces instead of saying who's the rubric, you say which one is better.
Absolutely. So you've got two pieces, you literally look at it, which one's better, left or right. Okay? Now, teachers, you would think would find this easy, but they could actually go to their default and they start looking at presentation. And then you're like, when you print them out and you hand them out, go, look at the content. Sometimes they're surprised that they wrote a little bit, but what they said is better. Okay? So the concept behind this is that No More Marking is a company. They allowed us to use their product, and if you're really nice to me, I'll tell you how you can use it for free too. They allowed us to use their big algorithm to basically rank. Somehow we had 227 samples for one of our pods. Now to do that physically would take a long time, but because this algorithm is running in the background, you can extract information really, really quickly. Like I said, they are a company, but they do have the algorithm that you can sign up. So if you had some that you as a diocese wanted to try a few, and they know that I'm telling you this, so it's not me selling state secrets or anything, but they, that's the whole thing, is it is a company, but there are free ways to use it. And our schools have found it really powerful to be able to sit in the staff room and look at their samples. So you literally are looking at the two samples and you're saying which is better. Now, the key thing is the original one was set up so that the judgments, 80% were in your own school. So the original pilot was set up so that the schools were judging their own. But to make a statistic that we could compare, you needed schools thrown into the pot. So for the original pilot, every time I judged, there'd be 20% thrown in from other schools. So you would never get just your own ranking. Okay? If you set it up as a test, you can only put your samples in. So what's really interesting about this is it gets away from that bias that, oh my gosh, I inherently want to make my school a little bit better. It moves away from that to, I have to really look at the content. So in the autumn, we started with year 4 and we did an incarnation task, and we had 8 schools, and we said, can you upload all of your year 4 samples? So they gave us 241 samples, and then we opened up a judging window. In the judging window, we had 4,744 people judgments made against pieces. That's a lot of data. The summer we had we had 6 schools doing a year 1 task. With the Eucharist and the Lamb of God, we did these concurrently, and we said to the schools, these are the tasks. We are going to use these at moderation. If you're interested in uploading your samples, do. If you can't stick to the timetable, do the task anyway. Bring it to moderation so you can see where your school fits into where everything else is. So we were using these as a ladder to help our schools. And then in autumn last year, we attempted to do the year 6 one. Now, the next part of this is all of the reports are laid out the same way, okay? First part of the report, we just show you the scripts. Which ones did we end up looking at? Because we obviously didn't put all 240. So once people started making judgments, we pulled them out from the different percentiles. So you could see the range for that skill. We then analyzed them. We showed properties and characteristics. What are we seeing to make these look better? It's not intention to show every single step, but broad steps. So all of our reports so far are set out in the same way. The PowerPoint, the reason the PowerPoint is we want dialogue in the schools about this, so that the REC can take this, take the samples, and say, here's the sample, what do you see? And then they can look at it with their staff. Now, we don't expect them to do it with all of them. They can amalgamate them. It can be a step in the first step of their journey. But the thing that came up over and over is religious vocabulary. And the intention is that this is the next one we're really going to address. What do we mean by religious vocabulary? And with all of these, so here are the tasks. This was our year 1 task. We gave them a picture. The teacher had this, the pupils did not. What kind of skills might they get? It's not exclusive. It's not, these are the only ones, but these are what we think you might get. We were surprised because a couple of times we thought they were going to get something and we got something else. So it's been a learning curve for us as well. So our year 4 one, like I said, we actually ran this one first. And with this one, because we've got 3 different schemes going on, one of the reasons we ran this one first was it was about Christmas time. We knew that they should all be doing incarnation. So it didn't matter which of the 3 resources you were using, this is something you were going to touch on. And with this one, we did give them a little bit more support of things that might help them unpick it a bit more. Then we had the year 5 one, they had this as their prompt, and once again, we gave the teachers this as, this is what you might see. You'll notice at the moment, we're concentrating on the knowledge. None of these have been set up with AT2 in mind, but they might go that way, but we're not assessing that. These were also not set up with AT3 in mind, because our schools were so new to it, we thought, well, let's get the knowledge first. Okay? But when we got some of the samples, particularly in year 5, there was evidence of AT3. So we did say to our teachers, when you're doing your tracking of skills, be open-minded. You might be surprised at some of the things that come out. And then our last one, no picture prompt, this statement, because we were looking for AT3. This is a statement, and this is the one I think that surprised us the most. This is the one that we realized that we gave the teachers some support materials, but they had forgotten that year 6 schools, year 5 and year 6 are really good persuasive writers. But they didn't bring that into it with them. So the teachers forgot to model that essence. So in your in the PowerPoint, I've shown you, so this was like a sample from the 50th. So all of them, we show all of the samples that we then went on to analyze. We then show what the skills might have looked like. Okay. This one was the year 1 sample, and it was actually the strongest of the ones that were submitted. Like I said, not every school submitted everything. So when we came to physical moderation, there were some stronger pieces. And the schools went, oh, yeah, look at this one. And it led to a lot of dialogue, which is what the purpose is. So how are we seeing these skills develop? But we also looked through the samples to see what exactly is being shown. So they're all showing some religious vocabulary. This does not show that it's getting better. It's just showing the presence. So after we've analyzed what's present, we then went about making skills ladders. So if the skill is the top one, what steps might show that I'm getting better? Because this is the thing that teachers really are struggling with. They're like, well, how can I do that for 2 years? Well, you need to get better at it. Now, we've said to our schools, do not stick these in children's books. This is not, oh, yeah, tick, move on. This is a discussion. And once again, it's not exhaustive. Come up with your own steps. Okay, this was what we thought. And in the report, we then show examples of what each one might look like, taking bits from samples. So, attempt, a very brief, accurate, and a range of beliefs. So we've shown the schools what it looks like across a range of pieces. And we have said, you know, take some of your samples now. When you do moderation, use these ladders in a discussion. And in our deaneries, that's what the intention is, to start showing this development of skills. Like I said, this one we don't have actually over here. We do have examples of some of the other ones. So, you know, this one, we ended up with only 6 in our pack. And one of the reasons we only ended up with 6 is this one we didn't see as much progress at the moment. So this is a work in progress. But, you know, so all of them are set. So we've got them broken down into the percentiles of what our samples are from. And then we actually show the samples. And after we've shown the samples, we then start saying, well, okay, here's our development ladders. Okay. Now, diversity, we didn't see in any of the samples. So this was a real learning curve for us and for our teachers. And we went back to, in our training days, we said, okay, here's a sample that was sent in. If you had to reteach this, how could you address this? And they said that was some of the most powerful part of the training, is starting to recognize the opportunities that they could have found in pieces. So AT1 was evident in all of them. And it was a real learning curve for me, because when I first got these samples, I said to Amanda and the team, I was like, wow, we got some great samples. Great, lots of knowledge, but no AT3. So I then had to step back and say, okay, what do we have to do differently? And that's where our training then kind of came from, saying to the teachers, yeah, can't fault amazing AT1 knowledge. Once again, at the training last week, some schools said, yeah, we didn't have time to look at this piece. And you're like, it's there, because they use persuasive writing. So AT3, if you're telling your teachers, what do we need to do? It's those persuasive devices that they're doing in English. So this is our ladder for point of view, and then we actually show them. Now I know you can't read them, but on some of the reports over there, they're much clearer. But then we actually show what it means to arrive at judgments, and we've broken down to, you know, what do we think of the knowledge? What knowledge is here, and why have we said that this is arriving at judgments? And from this, like I said, we identified that we need to do more modeling of AT3, and teachers needed to recognize that. The thing that we now know that we have to develop further is vocabulary. Okay? Vocabulary is coming up time and time again. And teachers in year 6 are saying, yeah, they're using specialist vocabulary if they use the word God and Jesus. I'm like, you're in year 6. They're forgetting that in order to get better at vocabulary, you have to make sure that the richness is available, whether it be that you put it on your whiteboard and you refer to it, or it's on the top of the sheet, or it's on your display, or they have a build-up glossary. But at the end of the lesson, have them look back and see, well, have you done this? Because this is where the richness of our AT3 and AT1 and AT2 is going to come from. And I know that Come and See has developed some amazing vocabulary resources. You know, Whoever wrote them, thank you very much, because that's what teachers are calling out for. We've already decided that our next 2 tasks are going to be a year 2 task that we're thinking is going to be along the lines something like, who is Jesus? Because our teachers have said they don't want it specific to a year time, because we're giving them a whole term to decide when they want to do it, so they can then fit it in. But with a vocabulary, we want to see if you gave them an open-ended question, what are they going to show? How are they going to show you that they can engage with deep thinking? And our potentially year 3 one is something along the line of, which of the parables help show forgiveness? That's our initial thoughts. And we've said that we will get them to them after half term, and that the timeline is we want them the week before SATs. Because we don't want teachers to say, well, we couldn't do them because of SATs. And that gives us time to extrapolate and judge and everything and pull it together so that we can get it to them for moderation in June. And then we can start thinking about EYFS and SEND. Now, lots of things thrown at you. We do have some that you can look at. Before we give you any of those, we don't have copies of everything for everyone, but there are enough diagnostics that everyone can have at least one of those if you want, if not. But does anyone have any questions about that whistle-stop tour?
Within comparative judgment for writing, the idea is that you don't use any kind of rubric at all, but I can see that in RE you do. So why is that?
When I spoke with Daisy, it was kind of because we were using it because of the fact that they needed to know about standards, and we wanted to really be able to exemplify what the standard looked like.
Okay.
So she knows, and she's on board with it all.
So when your teachers sit there and mark the pieces when they're doing
No,
left
they
or
don't
right,
have a rubric.
No, they don't have.
It's just
so it is
professional
still there,
judgment.
but before entering into that exercise, they would have read it and thought, okay, these are the kind of things I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so exactly this, we don't give them a performance scale. It's just literally a professional judgment, which of these pieces is better.
Great.
And then the ladder has come from looking at the centiles and what's changed.
Yes.
And that was what people found useful, was that it was kind of breaking down those standards and how you can get progressively better. But that came from the comparative judgment, not beforehand.
Yeah.
If I just add to that, because I'm not in analysis, I think we've met before,
Oh.
haven't we?
Hello.
So we've also done this for 2 years,
Yes.
and reviewed comparative judgment writing as well. So I think the evaluation from our diocese is that they find writing a lot easier than RE. So that's the feedback from, I don't know if your teachers are the same, but they're saying it takes a lot longer to make those judgments with RE, because you've got to really read the pieces, you've got to really digest. And
Yeah. It was interesting because
There is a real difference.
there is a real difference, but it still cuts down on marking. I think that's the thing is because the fact that initially, because you're not looking for you're looking at how they've accessed that question versus you're not looking for we looked for the skills.
Yes.
So I think that the first time we ran it, they did take a lot longer. But it's funny, I think the ones that they took the longest were the year ones, because it was kind of like there was a lot of teacher scribes, which we really encouraged. But then it was kind of looking at the language to see does that really say what the child said, or was the teacher kind of put a slant on it? And that was an interesting conversation. And then, like I said, the year 6 ones that were really interesting was the fact that we thought we were going to get one thing and we got something else, but that's good too, because we now know what we need to train them for. And like I said, the year 3 is going to be, AT3 focused, because we don't really have any materials for them yet. So what does it look like at the beginning? What does AT3 look like now? And we've encouraged them to do the tasks again this year, because hopefully their subject knowledge is more underpinning, and look at them against exemplars and go, yeah. I think that the scariest thing for some teachers when they looked was, oh, this one's so much better than my school. And it's getting them away from that thought. But that's not the point, okay? What does this one have that my children don't have, and how do I address that is the point. But equally, some schools were like, yeah, we're doing really well with this. And if not, what do we need to do? So this has just opened up a lot of good professional dialogue, which I think is the point.